Then with French news, the Interior Minister, Gérald Darmanin, is asking for the implementation of a so-called backdoor to access the messages on phones of people who are suspected of posing a threat to France's national security. For services like WhatsApp, Telegram and Signal, that means creating an exception to the end-to-end encryption system. To tell us a bit more, Julia Seeger from our Science and Technology desk is with me. And Julia, we have heard this demand before, haven't we, to create a so-called backdoor for encrypted messages from politicians in Europe, but also from politicians in the US.
Indeed, Nadia. I think we hear it every time there's a terrorist attack. We hear this idea that we need to break encryption of those messaging apps like, as you said, Signal, WhatsApp, and Telegram. Now, the way they work is that they are indeed encrypted end to end. What does that mean? It means that the sender and the receiver are the only people who can access the information of the message. Now, the way it's going to work, as you can see here, this is the model of WhatsApp, but you have user A that's going to write a message as you would during when you text someone, right? And it's going to convert that message into encrypted text, send then to the server who's then going to transfer it to user B. And it's the WhatsApp app of the recipient that's going to decrypt this time, decipher this message. So you can see that it is indeed encrypted from end to end. Now, of course, it's a little bit more complicated than that because you also have identity keys and session keys, and those keys are never the same when you actually communicate with someone. So it makes it even more secure. But it is believed indeed that neither platforms or law enforcement officers can actually access this information. And in the United States, since Edward Snowden revealed the PRISM program, we've been hearing that that they want to put in this legislation that would require manufacturers and software developers to systematically design a backdoor to any of their tools, and that would allow officers to then case by case request access to those cell phones. The problem is you have to imagine that encryption is kind of like a fortress, and if you put a door on it, no matter how little the door is, it's going to create a vulnerability that can be exploited not only by hackers but also state actors.
All right, well, tell us more about that then, Julia. What kind of problems could the end of encryption create?
Well, for individuals, for instance, it's going to mean an increased risk of identity theft and confidential information. It's also, and I think this is very important, it kind of means the end of secrecy of personal conversations altogether. We know also that these different applications, Signal, WhatsApp, are used by human rights activists, journalists, political dissidents as well, but also people like you and I, Nadia. And our data is very important because it can be sold. It's really gold today. Now, what it also means for businesses this time is that there would no longer be any protection from industrial espionage, and that's actually huge. It could mean, if such a legislation would be voted in the United States, that the government could ask any company to give any information from one of their users.
And just a final question, Julia, could this backdoor actually already exist without us knowing about it?
I think it's an important question to raise. We need to ask ourselves this question because the reason why I'm going to go back on the revelations by Edward Snowden in 2013. He revealed the existence of an extensive digital communications surveillance program by the NSA. And what it was, it said it's a huge search engine, if you will, that allowed the NSA to pretty much query a massive amounts of information coming from our discussions, let's say, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Google. The reason I'm talking about this because the initial articles on PRISM actually mention a direct access by the NSA to those platforms. Now, of course, Facebook at the time, Google, Microsoft had denied those allegations, but at the same time, they hadn't denied working with the NSA. And so we can definitely ask ourselves this question of whether or not this backdoor already exists in certain cases, at least.
All right, raising really interesting questions. Thanks very much indeed, Julia Seeger, our Science and Tech editor, for us there.